Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.
Hello and welcome to Capes on the Couch, where comics get counseling. I'm Anthony Sitko and joined once again by my good friend, Dr. Issues.
Hi, everyone.
So this is our 25th episode.
Nice.
Which we didn't realize until right before we started recording. We were like, wow, this is 25. That's an impressive number.
Yeah. It's a testament to the hard work and dedication that you've put behind this, because other than my general knowledge of psychiatry, you do a lot of the work here, and I greatly appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate the acknowledgement. I appreciate your appreciation, I suppose. How meta is that? I don't know, but it is a lot of hard work, but I think it's worth it. And I think that we do an amazing job of bringing a different viewpoint every week and coming up with some new and interesting stuff. And we certainly could not do this without our listeners and our fans and our patrons, whom we greatly appreciate. And you guys are the reasons why we do this week in, week out. So 25 weeks, that's a quarter century, if you will, of this. So that's a long time to be doing a podcast. And we thank each and every one of you. And we look forward to the next 25. So before we continue, I just want to thank everyone who donated for my Extra Life. I was able to reach my $1,000 goal. Thank you, Doc.
Hey, just needed to make sure that you got your head shaved. That's all.
So my head will be shaved later this week. We'll be, I guess, figuring out all the specifics, but you can check the website. That will be posted. I do know that I would like to live stream it if possible. And I know I was talking to my friends over at the Children's Specialized Hospital. They would like to get in on it. So it will be shaved before the next week's episode. I will be rocking the dome look. It's going to be very interesting, a little creepy, I think, for me to see myself without the hair. But again, it's all been for a good cause. And my fundraising does not stop just because I reached $1,000, but it certainly will continue to move on and progress towards the end of the year. So please, if you haven't donated already, go to extra-life.org. Look for my name, Anthony Sitko, Sytko. The fundraising links are also available on our Facebook and Twitter pages, as well as our website, capesonthecouch.live. As well, you can also find our show, as always, distributed through the Libsyn Network. We are on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube, and the iHeartRadio Network. And you can email us any questions at capesonthecouch@gmail.com. Now, moving on to this week's episode. This one was the listener poll, which we thank all of you who participated, all of you who got your votes in. And it was actually kind of close there for a while. And then on Thursday, our winner took the lead. And so in honor of this coming Sunday's Walking Dead Season 9 premiere on AMC, this episode will be about the governor.
I didn't see that coming. I would have bet that my Negan campaign was going to win in a landslide, but thank you, listeners, for surprising us.
Yeah, and I was pushing for Rick, and I think I made a reference during the last episode, during the Separate Cuckoos, and I said, wouldn't it be something if the governor came out and won? Because I was pushing for Rick, and you were pushing for Negan, and the governor just ended up, it was a late surge. The polls closed on Saturday, and the governor took the lead around Thursday. So I can only assume that people who listened to the Step for Cuckoos episode then turned around and said, well, you know what? Let's put the screws to both of them and let's have the governor win. So
yeah, you thought we wouldn't know what to do with that, but we got you covered. Don't worry.
Oh, no, we're going to have the same hard-hitting insight and analysis that you've come to expect from, well, do they come to expect hard-hitting insight analysis from us? If you do, I think you're listening to the wrong show.
Right. Exactly.
No, I kid, of course. And just on a side note, for me personally, I never watched the show after the first season, and I never read the comics. So my knowledge of these characters was really just through the general zeitgeist. And to read the books, has just been a fantastic experience. I'm not all the way caught up, but I finished the first 6 hardcover volumes. So I would say that's probably about 70 or so issues. And I'm hooked. I am sincerely hooked, and I am going to continue reading the books. I was hoping to get up to Negan at the very least in the storyline before the voting closed. But such as it was, I had read past the governor's storyline. And so I was well prepared for the discussion for this episode. I was hoping to get to Negan at least so I could get a general idea of all of the potential characters, but Governor surged late, and I mean, I'm still going to read them, but at least now I can read them at my leisure and not because I have to.
Yeah, I had a much more organic experience reading The Walking Dead. I've been reading the comics for a while, and similar to Anthony, I really never got into the show, so I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other about it, other than the experience that other people that only know the show and not the comics and the feedback that they give me. So I remember when Negan, first appeared, that was a big deal with some of the people that I was working with because they watched the show, but they didn't know the comic and they knew I knew the comic. So they would ask me those types of questions. And I remember the first comment was like, oh, well, it doesn't seem that bad. Like, oh, wow. Okay, that's going to change. And I think the same thing could have been said for the governor, but they did that pretty brute force style with him in the show as well as the way he was presented in the comics. So I don't think there was really an issue with that.
Well, it's always fun for people who read the source material before the live action adaptation comes out. I can speak as a fan of Game of Thrones, having read say the 3rd book before season 3 came out and the whole Red Wedding. My mother and I had read it and we knew what was happening. My father had never read the books. So the entire time as that scene was approaching, we were transfixed on my father to see his reaction. And I mean, you can just do a YouTube search for fan reactions to the Red Wedding, and they're videotaped by fans of the books who knew what was coming, of people who didn't read the books and didn't know what was coming, and just watching the various, holy expletive responses that these people had to all of your favorite characters just dying suddenly. It was great. So the governor, real name Brian Blake, which I did not obviously learn until later on in the comics. The governor, created by Robert Kirkman, Charlie Adlard, and Cliff Rathburn in Walking Dead number 27, April 2006, which is just on a side note, is kind of shocking to me that the character was created 12 years ago. Like, that's a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a situation where modern or most recent, pop culture is all on board with The Walking Dead, but it's been going on for a while.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize just how long ago this had started and how long this had been going on. So we meet the governor. He is head of a small community in Woodbury, Georgia, and they welcome in Rick Grimes and his group into the fold. And they've been wandering. They're looking around for supplies. They're currently holed up in a prison, Rick and his group. And that's when they encountered the governor and this community that he has fostered. I think it's Wiltshire Estates is the gated community sort of houses that the governor and his people are managing to secure. They're building. They're trying to expand outward. They're trying to continue to grow. So Rick is kind of disturbed to discover that the governor uses zombies as entertainment, and he forces people to fight surrounded by zombies. So they're chained up. The zombies are chained along the corridor, the outside of a courtyard, and then they throw 2 people in, and it's like Gladiator, where they're given some weapons and just, okay, fight for the crowd. And are you not entertained?
Right. I think it's an interesting commentary because society as a whole, we tend to marginalize the idea of being barbaric and not wanting to hurt one another and those sorts of things. But as soon as we find a way to organize it, it becomes a great gathering point. What I mean by that is athletics, football, MMA, all that stuff. That's our modern gladiator stuff. In a zombie apocalypse, I don't think that seems to be too far out of place. You'd think somebody would come up with something like that and say, hey, might as well make the best of it.
It's all part of the plan.
Oh boy.
No, but when you were describing it, that's how I sort of envisioned it. I was picturing the Joker and Harvey in the hospital, and people lose their minds.
Yeah.
We also learned that the governor has a small zombie girl chained up in his private living quarters. It's his niece Penny, and this is just some really, really, frankly, disturbing stuff. He feeds her body parts to keep her going.
Yeah, she's a zombie. That makes sense.
He punishes her if he thinks that she's out of line.
Well, she's a child. I mean, children need that reinforcement.
And then he pulls her teeth out and begins French kissing her.
Yeah, I got nothing. That's just messed up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's creepy. And of course, it's supposed to be creepy. You're not supposed to empathize with the governor. But by the same token, even with all that being said, it's still just creepy AF. So Rick and his group kind of refuse to accept the governor's leadership. So the governor cuts off Rick's hand.
Yeah, isn't that old law that if you don't like someone, you cut off their... Oh, wait, that was stealing. And that... Yeah, this is just really getting more messed up as you talk about it.
So he ties up Michonne and he rapes her repeatedly, like brutal, violent rape. He's tortured Glenn. He has Glenn in the room next to him, or next to Michonne, so that Glenn can hear all of the things that the governor is doing to Michonne, in the hopes that Glenn will say, enough, I will tell you anything you want to know, so I will save Michonne, because the governor wants to know where the prison is. He wants to know where all these other people are. He wants all of their stuff. He wants everybody to come under his leadership. And so he wants Rick and his crew to fall in line with him. Well, and of course, they don't want to.
Right. I mean, well, when you torture someone, you know that it may or may not work. I mean, some people will say just about anything to end the torture. In this case, they went the opposite route. It was more along the lines of, no, we all know that you are absolutely wrong. You are messed up in the head, and we are not going to let you win no matter what, even if it costs us our lives. Thank you.
So he lets everyone escape. Well, everyone escapes the compound, and we think that it's, that they're somehow breaking free. So one of the guards, Martinez, helps them. Michonne continues. So he leaves Michonne behind to continue abusing her, but she breaks free. And what ensues is one of the most brutally violent things I've ever read in any comic. She captures the governor. She kills Penny straight up.
Yep.
And then she proceeds to tie the governor down. She cuts off his arm.
Well, remember, he's cut off a hand, so hey,
She removes his fingernails.
Okay, that's unique.
And she cuts his penis off.
Okay, I think we're past the metaphors now.
And then she shoves a spoon in his ass, takes it out, and then uses that spoon to scoop out his left eyeball. That to me, and this is going to sound strange, even more so than the penis severing, that to me was the worst part of it, was the eye thing. And there's a whole TV trope explaining eye scream and why the eyes are one of the most, I guess, vital parts of our bodies, and why we get so squeamish if something goes after the eye, if there's a needle in the eye, or if someone's going after your eye. Just no, thank you. No, thank you. I'm literally just shuddering thinking about the frames and the panels in the comic.
Yeah. I mean, there's the poetic side that says that the eyes are the windows to the soul. Imagine that, except it's with a feces covered spoon.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Nope. Just a big fat nope. So he survives the ordeal thanks to one of the citizens, Bob, who had some medical expertise. Bob was the town drunk, but Bob used to be a medic in the army for a couple of weeks back 40 some odd years ago, and managed to save the governor's life and prevent infection. Meanwhile, Martinez and Rick's group escape back to the prison. They welcome Martinez in. Martinez was a mole who then went back to Woodbury, or was trying to get back to Woodbury to tell the governor where the prison was, except Rick chases him down with a car and runs him over and kills him, so that he can't report back to the governor where the prison is. So the governor uses Martinez's death as a rallying cry to get his people to attack Rick's group at their prison stronghold. That does not go well the first wave. They suffer numerous casualties. Lots of people die. They retreat. Then the governor shows up and he wants to negotiate, and he has managed to capture Tyrese as a hostage, and Rick refuses to sacrifice everyone else to save Tyrese's life. And Tyrese basically says, no, kill me. Don't let this man in. And so the governor hacks off Tyrese's head with Michonne's katana, except it's not clean. It takes several whacks. Picture basically when Theon Greyjoy was trying to decapitate what's his name after taking over Winterfell. Except he's not strong enough, and he's just, there's several bits and several hacks, and eventually the head comes off, but it's not clean.
Well, we're not doing Rick, but credit to him and to his group to have the resolution that, as we've heard in society, you don't negotiate with terrorists. It's one thing to say it. It's another thing to really follow through with that to the end. The very, very end. And to be willing to sacrifice a vital member of your group just to keep said terrorist from taking over. So then the Woodbury residents assault the prison because they have a tank. Hey, it works. It barely works, and they didn't really know how to shoot it. They didn't really know how much to drive it. They barely had control over it. It was mostly used just for fear. But they storm the prison compound with the tank. And as the governor continues to press the attack, they're gunning down not just the walkers, but they're gunning down members of Rick's group. And Rick's wife, Lori, and their less than year-old baby daughter, Judith, get shot. And the governor continues to press his people on the assault. And everybody goes, listen, it's one thing to attack and kill the biters or the roamers. It's another thing entirely to kill people. And they turn on him and they shoot him, and then they throw his corpse to the rest of the walkers for food. Yeah, I think it's an example of what happens when you want to win at all costs and the people that you're leading realize that there's no such thing as all costs. So, que sera, sera. Thank you, Doris Day. So, the governor, not in the comics for many, many runs, but I would say he's definitely the big bad of that particular arc. And the thing is when after Michonne mutilates him and leaves him, there was a part of me that said, oh, he can't survive that. That's, she really messed him up. Like, just blood loss alone, like he'll just die from exsanguination. She cut off an arm. She chopped off his wang. She scooped out his eyeball. There's a lot of blood loss. But he somehow managed to survive. Yep, and he became Darth Vader. Nah, really. I mean, if you look at those types of injuries, even if you had someone doing quote-unquote triage work, not happening. Yeah. There's a slim chance you'll survive, but I mean a slim chance. Yeah, and even then, it's realistic. Even then, without lasting brain damage, because that's the other part. Your eye is really, really close to your brain. That's by design. It's not an accident. So something like that getting scooped out, yeah, sure, you'll survive it. But I mean, the trauma along with the brain loss, he would have been hypoxic. No, this would have been way worse. We'd be wondering if he could talk. Interesting. I guess I hadn't considered that from a medical and a physiological standpoint, but that's why you're the doctor. Well, I hadn't either until we just brought it up right now. Hey. So the issues of one Brian Blake. He is a charismatic sociopath. And that is something, it's a common trope. Well, not a common trope, but it's a common enough trope that we've seen in fiction where you get someone that has zero real empathy for people. They are power hungry. They seek no ends but their own, but they're so charismatic and they can whip a crowd into a frenzy just with some words and some slogans and some appeals to emotion. And you can get them eating out of the palm of your hand, no pun intended,
very easily. And these people are incredibly dangerous. And the governor is a textbook example of that. And Doc, I don't know how you want to begin to unpack what that is like. I don't even know how else to phrase it. He's a charismatic sociopath, and go.
I want you to like me. I really want you to like me. Because when you like me, you'll want to do things for me. If you want to do things for me, you'll automatically think that because you're doing them, they're positive goals. It's much better for you to come to that conclusion than for me to tell you. So that's where charm comes in. That's where charisma takes over. That's not something that we're programmed to deal with. We are not naturally wary of people that are nice. We're wary of people that show an immediate threat. In other words, if I came at you with a gun, you're more than likely going to be fearful of your life. If I say hello to you, have a warm smile, have some sort of quirk that might get you on my side, now we can really let our guard down and just have a regular conversation. That's what the governor does. He makes sure that, at least in the beginning, it all looks like it's well and good. Does he actually care about any of this stuff? No, not in the slightest. He has his own personal goals and he wants to reach them any way he can. For some reason, he's found out that this seems to work. So he'll go with it. What I will say, though, is he'll only go with it for so long. He'll do it if it seems like it's getting some progress. The second that it doesn't, then that fancy veneer just seems to disappear and it becomes brute force. So when he encounters, first of all, when he encounters large groups, he recognizes quickly if they're unknown, maybe he can turn on the charm, but they don't know anything about him. And if he's in a position of power, he's willing to take them out. He wants small groups. Why? Because he doesn't have to exert as much effort. They're not a threat. So, hey, welcome, Rick, and your seemingly small band. If he came in with everyone from the prison, it would have been hell to pay immediately. It would have been like just an all-out, drag-out war from the start, but it didn't start that way. Once you're in his world, his good graces, whatever you want to call it, things start to shift a little bit. It becomes a situation where I was nice to you and I've already demonstrated it once. I don't need to demonstrate it again because now I have plenty of other people that will tell you just how things work or what's expected. And there won't be any problems as long as everything's smooth sailing. But I also make sure that I have other people that if things don't go so well, you're going to have some problems. And you don't want problems, right?
Like Bruce. Bruce was his right-hand man, dare I say the closest thing to a friend that the governor had. And Bruce was willing to go along with basically everything that the governor needed until Bruce died or got bitten. And then the governor put him down so that he wouldn't reanimate. And we actually get to see some real emotion from the governor for a moment. That seems to be the only point of sadness in which the governor has any sort of emotional response is when Bruce dies, because Bruce was his right-hand man. And I think that actually serves not only as an insight into the governor's mindset, but also a turning point towards when things really start going south and the governor becomes, I don't want to say completely unhinged, because it's not that he was ever coherent to begin with, but that he becomes more focused on preserving the power at all cost and less concerned for the facade of the, friendliness.
That's an excellent point. I think it's a matter of how people negotiate, because ironically, when you want as much power as possible individually, you try and defer parts of the negotiation to others and make them the enemy. What I mean by that is, it's very common in police tactics or to the people that they're talking to, let's say it's a hostage situation, to point out, seems like you're going through a lot right now. What is it that you're requesting? And the terrorist or hostage taker, they'll go ahead and make their demands. Police don't say no. They may say, we'll have to figure out a way to make something happen. Being very non-committal, but not saying, oh my God, that's impossible. We can't do that. And sometimes, because I'm not a police officer, I wonder why use that tactic. And reading something like The Walking Dead helps me appreciate that much more, even though it's fiction, because taking such hardline stances means you don't give an opportunity for anyone to bend. People want to win. They want to feel like they're doing something where they're getting something out of it. They're able to hang on to something even when they've lost everything else. And you have to find out what that is with each person. It's clear with the governor, he just wants to be in control of his area. If he has that, he's happy. Anyone that's threatening that, it doesn't matter what else you offer. You just have to say, hey, you have all the control. The prison, you got it. Fine, no problem. Nobody would have been killed. But clearly, life doesn't work that way because it was, oh, by the way, give up all your supplies and basically you're all going to starve to death and nothing good is going to come of it. Well, he didn't see it that way. And because he didn't see it that way, he really couldn't comprehend why anybody would be willing to fight him on it. And if no one's willing to explain that, I'm exaggerating here. Of course, people try to explain that. But he's already made up his mind that no one is going to take his side on this. And if they're not going to take his side, then they're going to take his command. And when he turns it around and says, well, you don't have to worry about me. I'm just one man. But those people out there, they're trying to take everything. They're willing to kill us. What are we going to do about it? Well, anybody could understand that, right? That's not the governor's fault. That's other people's fault. So out of nowhere, despite the fact that it was clearly his goal to have all the power, control everything in an extended range, he was able to point out that because it's an external threat, it doesn't matter what he says or does, it's what those other people do. And once you get people to focus on some sort of external threat, forget it. Our minds just shut down. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I'm not going to pretend. I think, honestly, sociologists and maybe even economists might be able to explain that a little better than I can. But it's the truth. People shut down the second they feel there's an external threat. Doesn't matter what's going on within their own locus of control. But if they know they have to protect themselves from anything outside, it's going to be bad.
Well, I think that's just common projection. And going back to your police negotiation, I would say that's one of the hallmarks of a good cop, bad cop negotiation tactic is the sense that, oh, I'm the good guy. I'm going to give you what you want. But they're the ones, they're hard. So you better stick with me and make sure that, you and I can get along well. I think that's part of it. It's not the entire thing, but there's certainly an aspect of it there that ties in with the good cop, bad cop, where you are trying to get them on your side by painting another person, another external party as the one responsible. Now, let's talk a little bit about his relationship with Penny.
Oh, do we have to? Oh, my God.
We have to. In the comics, it's his niece. In the TV show, it's his daughter. Now, I haven't seen the TV show. I don't know how sexual the relationship is in the show. But in the comics, he removes her teeth so that she can't bite him anymore. And then this enables him to kiss her. It's disgusting. I don't even know how you. No, thank you.
Okay. Well, to make this as academic a discussion as possible, I guess I can say that necrophilia exists, where a person has a attraction to dead bodies to the point that grave robbers have existed, that people have done some very strange and unfortunate things in certain circumstances. But I can honestly say I haven't treated any patients with that, focusing more on the idea that the comic allows for the ultimate in creating a shrine to a person, it's very common that you want to have something to remember a deceased loved one by. If they're cremated, you have the urn. You have pictures, maybe. You know, if it's a really big, important person, we put up whole museums and temples or whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying that all is a part of the human condition. But if they're a zombie, that means that you could still have their corpse there. And therefore, you could just keep it going for as long as you can.
The thing about the governor is this really hits upon three of the most, I guess, widely considered horrific sexual taboos possible.
Let me see if I can get them. Hold on. Incest.
Yep.
Pedophilia.
Yep.
And necrophilia.
Bingo.
Okay.
3 for 3.
Oh, Jesus.
He's got all three. This is his zombified. She looks to be no more than 6 in the comics. His zombified 6-year-old niece. Yeah, exactly. I know. It's horrifying.
To explain that pause there, I have been writhing. I can't stand this. I'm being honest with you all. This is really difficult because while I pointed out I have not dealt with people with necrophilia, I have dealt with the other two, and it's very difficult from a transference countertransference situation to deal with these cases.
I can absolutely respect that. And I think that's what makes them so horrifying to examine, and why portrayals like this in fiction are so stark, that they go to the root of what makes us tick as humans. They go to that base of humanity. So you hit all 3 checkpoints on that one: pedophilia, necrophilia, and incest in one character, in one relationship. That is the ultimate bad guy. And I think it's just that really hammers home just how messed up the governor is, that he's considering this relationship. It's really Nope. So let's move out of the issues then. Let's move into treatment in universe, assuming that you're treating him, I guess, before he's shot, but after the eye and the penis and the arm are removed. Vaya con Dios is all I have to say.
Okay, so there are a few things that we'd have to establish in terms of ground rules. I would have to have him find a way to let Penny go. Ironically, there are ways to do this already told in the Walking Dead universe. What I mean by that is, if anyone has played the Telltale games of the Walking Dead, especially season 1, they have a situation where one of their survivors' sons does get bitten and starts to turn, and they're left with the choice of what to do. You can leave him in the woods, you can shoot him there, you can choose not to shoot him and just leave him in the woods. But things change depending on what you decide to do. And in addition to that, they come across a house that's abandoned, but a child had survived in the attic. Well, had survived in the attic. And you see this pre-adolescent, basically skin and bones, just walking, like barely moving, but clearly turned. And it's painful to watch, and you have to decide what to do in that situation as well. So the point being, it's incredibly difficult with any grief or loss, but you have to find a way to move forward. And clearly that's not moving forward. And I'm not even talking about the necrophilia or the pedophilia.
Reanimation. Or that. I was going to say Morgan, the friend of Rick's that we see very early on. We run back into him later.
Yes.
And his son is chained up, and Rick says, you have to kill him. And Morgan says, fine, let me do it. And he goes into the house with his gun, and we see the blam, and then we see them drive off, and then you see that he shot the chain that let his boy go because he could not kill his own son, which I totally get it.
Right. Now, in terms of dealing with him from a overarching sociopath and all of that, I mean, Charisma is a positive thing. I don't want to make it sound like trying to get people to like you is a negative, but it also depends on whether you're using it for the end justifying the means. So in a weird way, in universe, because this is a purely apocalyptic survival of the fittest thing, I'm not trying to have sit down sessions with the guy. There's too much important stuff to be done. Not that I don't think my work is important, but I think it could be done in much more of a constructive way for the system at large. If he's still in a position of power, then I would almost look to be an advisor, a lieutenant, if you will, just to see if I could keep him on a more positive track as opposed to this purely destructive path that he's decided to take. You know, just be that little bug in his ear that says, I don't know if you need to shoot excess people when they're approaching your territory. I'm not so sure we have to go with this Gladiator style entertainment all the time. Just those little things. And even just getting those tweaks here and there to make their society a little better might be the way to go. And I'm saying this sincerely in terms of I'm not looking to usurp power, because that's the other part. I don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to jump in on his game. That would be disastrous for me and for anybody else he considers to be a part of it. But that might be a little more productive than saying, all right, just talk with me and talk out your problems, because I'm not sure he'd be interested in that at all.
Interesting. So I think the whole I'm not trying to take over for you is going to be big, because someone like that in that mindset, there's a healthy dose of paranoia and fear that they are balancing their authority on a precarious tip, basically. And if it goes one way or the other a little too far, their entire power balance is shot, because the whole crux of it is centered around fear. And that only lasts for so long. So if he can't continue to scare people into believing in him, he's not going to be in power for much longer. So out of universe.
Okay. All right. I'm just going to jump into it. All right. There's a saying I like to point out. Are you scared? Good. Because that's the best time in terms of doing things. Don't wait till you're comfortable, because it's too late. Situation like this, I'm just going to go ahead and create a hypothetical. You have a patient that has had the types of sexual relationships that should not have happened in the first place. In addition to that, they have a good dose of narcissism. They're incredibly power hungry. I just realized I said that I can do a hypothetical. I'm not going to lie. I can do reality. Just last week, had a patient, elderly patient, been a Megan's Law, which I guess is always true. I mean, you don't get rid of that. But they were there for completely different reasons. They were suicidal. But I'm just pointing out, I know I already have pointed out that it's incredibly difficult to deal with people that have committed things that you feel like are true crimes against all existence. And if you ever read the blog, you'll know some of the things that really get my goat about that. But the way I had to handle it is I have to remember this is a human being that is suffering in one way or another. We may not think of it that way because it's easier to just label them a horrible person and move on. But that's not fair to them, because they're here with you as a patient. And in those situations, I try and just keep it focused on what is the main small problem that I might be able to address in this short period of time, so that this person can feel a little bit better about themselves and simultaneously prevent them from doing any other harm in the world. In order to do that, I have to separate out a huge part of myself. And I'll admit I struggle with it all the time, where I have to say to this person, you still have that baseline value. Help me see it. Because I'll admit I can't see it for myself. If you can show it to me, if you can demonstrate that you are someone that continues to have a greater value than what other people have bestowed upon you. Inherently, I know that's true, but you're going to have to work with me and we're going to have to build this from scratch because you're starting at ground zero. I'm very upfront and honest about it because if I lie, they'll see right through me. I can't say, oh, well, I know you got a good soul. That's the worst thing you can do because it shuts them down. It makes them realize like, oh, you're just full of it. You can't do that. I don't want to like throw expletives at them and all that because they've heard that all anyway and they just shrug that off. But the idea that I could actually pierce and say, I want to try, but it's really difficult to make that connection. Do you have something that I can start with? Because that puts the onus back on them and they're going to have to do some serious introspection because they know that all of the dog and pony show of being nice is not going to work.
But I ask then how you get them to see that point if they're that far gone potentially. So if they don't see anything redeemable within themselves, how can you get them to see it?
I try, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, I try even on the most superficial level. In other words, so where you from? You know, in this case, you know, oh, you're from Georgia. All right. Never been to Georgia. What's it like? You know, just like the basic conversation. It doesn't even sound like therapy. It sounds like you're just having a chit chat on, you know, while you're waiting for something like, you know, waiting for the bus at the bus stop. And you're trying to make small talk. Just something that simple. Just trying to get to what happened before all of this. Because with incredibly rare exceptions, I don't think anybody starts out this way. Doesn't have to be childhood stories. It could be other random things that happened that didn't seem to have any other issues. Like, you know, someone like the governor, like before the zombies, like what did you like? What did you do? I don't care if he's a used car salesman. Whatever it is. Something that didn't pertain exactly to all this nonsense. I'm saying that because it would be trying. So many times this fails. I hate to say that, but it's the truth. But that doesn't mean any of us stop trying. And if at any point I thought it was too poisonous, in other words, my relationship with them had gone sour on either end, I'm not blaming them. I'm saying I may very well have said, you know what, I've done all I can and someone else needs to pick up the mantle and continue the fight. But it's not something that happens very easily.
Understood. I can certainly appreciate that. And I'm grateful that it's not part of my job responsibilities to have to talk to folks like this and have these kinds of conversations on a regular basis, because I don't think that I have the strength to do it. And I've said this before, that I admire and respect you every day for what it is that you do. And the fact that you willingly walk into these scenarios and talk to these people is something that I know I couldn't do. So I tip my hat to you, sir.
Well, I'll also point out that since I work in an emergency room, it's usually on a short-term basis. I really need to commend the people that do this on a daily basis and have these patients as long-term clients. And I will advise anyone that does do that line of work to please make sure that you have your boundaries, make sure that you have other people to talk to about it, because it can really start to skew your view of society as a whole if you don't continue to look outside of that.
Fair enough. So let's take all of this and let's see what happens when we get the governor on Dr. Issues' couch.
Hello, I'm Dr. Issues. Mr. Blake, Governor, which do you prefer?
Well, I suppose I ain't a governor of nothing no more, so Mr. Blake works just fine.
You sound dejected.
I had authority. I had people who entrusted me with their safety and security, and y'all took that away from me. So I reckon that'd be enough to make anyone a little depressed.
So what have you done to cope with that much loss of authority?
Well, I say I played with my pecker, but that no-good lying bitch took it from me. I thought she killed me. And lucky for me, I got saved by Bob. The town drunk. Always took a liquid lunch. Never much help to the community before, but I took pity on the man on account of he was still one of us, one of the living. And he's the one what saved me. So it just goes to show I was rewarded for my kindness, at least in that particular instance.
Are you implying that your kindness caused problems? Because I see the opposite. Every time you were vindictive and hostile, you had people rise up against you.
Oh, I don't see it that way at all. I was not hostile unless it was in defense of me and mine. I was responsible for those people. It was my duty to keep them safe, to keep them free from those unholy monsters. And most of the time, my generosity was met with acceptance and unity. It wasn't until that Mr. Grimes and his raggedy bunch came along and ruined our little utopia. I was simply doing what I thought was best for the people in my care.
Yeah, about that. You were incredibly selective about the people in your care. You didn't welcome those that you considered to be outsiders. You're automatically putting up your guard, and that sends a hostile message. You know, that's true whether you realize it or not.
I was willing to negotiate, even after they escaped. I offered them the opportunity to rejoin our community. Of course, there were some stipulations, but those were only there for the safety of my people. I simply could not allow dangerous, violent people to endanger the balance of everything we had built. I mean, surely you can understand that, Doctor.
Absolutely. I mean, balance is important. And here's the thing. Trying to avoid cutting people's heads off is important. Making sure your citizenry don't have to feel like they're fighting for their survival every second, regardless of who's in charge, is important. All the pleasantries in the world don't mask that level of atrocity.
All right, listen here, you smart little fucker. You cannot begin to comprehend what we were up against. The things we had to do to survive. All of nature was rebelling against us. The dead rising up and walking among us, that's disrespectful to God and mankind. The rules of society were completely disregarded. I had to establish law and order. So I don't want to hear bullshit from your mealy little mouth about keeping things together with a strong hand. It's what was needed at the time. If you were there, you'd have seen it my way.
It's a fair point that I can't possibly imagine what you've gone through. And with a reaction like that, I'm willing to respect that you were, let's say, well-intentioned.
That's right. I am a man of vision. If you were in my community, you would have been utilized to your fullest capabilities. You know, it's a damn shame I didn't have you in my corner then, because we really could have made Woodbury into something quite special. And when I get out of here, I would still like to pick your brains, if you'll pardon the pun, about how to make the world a better, safer place.
Compliment appreciated, but I'd like to point out that my focus has to be with you as my patient, first and foremost. But if you're sincere about doing more good in the world, I can always get behind that. So, you know what? We're on the topic of picking each other's brains. What would you like to see happen? You know, and please, if you can refrain from violence in what you're going to discuss.
Now we're getting somewhere. Now, people need to be used according to their abilities. I mean, that just makes sense. There are so many among us who have resources that are being underutilized. My goal is to ensure these individuals are prioritized in society. And as for the rest of people, well, we always need entertainment.
There's one little problem here. I don't get entrusted with any sort of keys for those things. So you can threaten or sweet talk however you want with me. You're going to have to deal with the same level of security that you've been dealing with. And from what I understand, you haven't been so polite with them either.
I'm going to say it again. You're going to let me out of this place, or so help me God, I will not hesitate to kill you or anyone who stands in my way.
Well, pardon me. I'm not that stupid to give freedom to someone who's threatening to kill me, because I get that enough on a daily basis. We're done here.
You don't walk away from me, boy. I will get out one way or another. I will talk to these gods. They know the kind of bullshit you're pulling in here. They will come to understand what I'm trying to accomplish. They will help me guide us toward a new life. We will get it done. We're going to stick together, and we will show you what we can do. We'll show you. We made it out alive.
Yeah, because I'm not stupid enough to let a sociopath just go free.
Well, you know, I mean... Well, sociopath, I mean, he sounded like he had some decent ideas. He sounded like he wanted... Wait. I'm sorry. I fell for that. He's a smooth talker.
Yeah, you get used to it. And in all honesty, a lot of times I'll even play along and really go with it until I just point out, yeah, no, it's BS. You're done.
He could sell an Eskimo ice cubes, as they say. He is a smooth talker.
Yep. Except when you have evidence, when people have done wrong, you really have to make sure you go with it.
Real short temper, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really grateful to people that keep people like me safe that have to poke the bear.
Yeah. Oof. That's a rough job. Being a security guard in a situation like that. I don't envy you, and I don't envy them either.
Right.
I have a desk job. Thank you very much. I got a nice, quiet 9 to 5. The woman sits next to me. She's a little free of the mouth, but otherwise that's the worst thing is she'll just she'll mouth off at people. But I never have to worry about getting into violent scrapes on a daily basis. So, whew. I'll stick to my desk job. Thank you. So that's going to wrap it up for this week. So thank you again, everyone who voted and selected the governor. Maybe for the season 10 premiere or a later time, we could do another Walking Dead character because it's really, like I said, reading the books now, I'm definitely hooked on them and I will definitely continue to plow through. Many thanks to Brian for his lending me the books, the hardcover editions, so I can blow through them. I've been reading them while I'm on my lunch break at work, and it's fun to get my coworkers looking at it. My one coworker, I had it sort of in my lap and she couldn't see everything and she thought I was reading a yearbook. She's like, "Oh, is that like your high school yearbook?" Oh. First off, no, Sue. Why would I be reading my high school yearbook at the lunch table at work? But more importantly, no, this is not my high school yearbook. So next week, we are, speaking of Brian picked next week's episode, the Hank Henshaw episode coming up.
Yay! Again, I've been doing that ever since I found out about it.
Yeah, because Brian is our president level patron, and you can become a patron of our show as well. Patreon.com/capes on the couch. You can subscribe at the $1, $3, $5, and $10 levels. $1 gets you a shout out. $3 gets you early access, and as well as a blooper reel every month. $5 gets you longer uncensored versions of our skits and guarantee that any questions you have will be answered by us. And $10 means once a month you get to select a character, and we will do that character and answer any questions that you have on him. So Brian wants to hear all about Hank Henshaw. The following week, Matt wants to know all about Vandal Savage. So that's going to be 2 DC villains that are on the CW shows back to back, because Hank is in Supergirl, or was in Supergirl, and Vandal Savage was in Legends of Tomorrow. And then the following week, we're going to finally get around to Ra's al Ghul. Seriously, we guarantee it's going to happen. We're going to do him come hell or high water. I don't care if we have to record the night before and I will edit all night long. We will get Ra's al Ghul in for that episode. And then Halloween, October 31st, we are going to be doing a character befitting of the holiday. And it's going to be the Green Goblin himself, Norman Osborn.
Yay!
There's a lot to talk about there with Norman. He's been involved in Marvel Comics for a long, long time.
Yeah. In more ways than one, he deals with serious business.
Womp womp. That was bad.
You know, that's the only pun we had this entire episode.
True. Yeah, this was a pun light episode. There weren't too many references either.
Good point.
I think we took this one fairly seriously.
Well, that's what happens when you deal with the unholy trinity.
Yeah. There's just some really messed up stuff here. So that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.
Capes on the Couch podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Dr. Issues is a psychiatrist, but he is not your psychiatrist and does not have knowledge of your individual situation. For any personal mental health concerns, please consult your own healthcare providers. For medical emergencies, please call 911 or the designated number in your area immediately. Remember that you are not alone and help is out there.